Welcome to Invictus Motors. We've got this Porsche 911 Turbo. This is the 997.1 Turbo, and ironically I've got a 911 here to my left, which is probably the beginning of an era. I would definitely say it's a beginning of the turbocharged era. But this is the end of an era of turbocharged 911s like no other, especially with that 3.6 litre Mesca engine. And in this review, I'll just basically talk about and cover sort of the key facts. Ultimately, I think potentially in the Porsche 911 Turbo era, starting from sort of the mid-70s, where Porsche were one of the first companies to take up to putting in turbos in sports cars, and why this isn't really going to be much in terms of it being part of the video, but why it kind of became mainstream for Porsche, whether that be in the Caymans, in the Boxsters, for them to start putting them turbocharged and basically reducing the engine displacement and bogging twin turbos onto it and just enhancing them in every way possible. Ultimately, this is a car, if I've got to go out there and pick one as a dream car to keep, both from an investment point of view, both from just a driving and just purely an aesthetic, side of things, it doesn't really get better than this. Just the silhouette, the shape, the lines, the way it's designed, the way it handles, the way that power from the rear engine is, let out onto the four-wheel drive system. It's just phenomenal in every way, form or shape. And there's no way actually to present this any better than to actually take it out for a test drive, because that engine, once it starts up with the upgraded stainless steel exhaust system, just sounds so perfect. And with each gear change, it just makes me smile and brings me into life, really. And that's the best way to say it. So let's get into it. It's a satisfying feeling to get into any Porsche 911, let alone a 911 Turbo. And this, as kids growing up, this is the kind of a car that you would have on the wall, or on a poster, and you'll just kind of drool over it and kind of just simply imagine one day and just hear this beautiful start. The clutch, from what I can feel, has also been replaced recently, and you've got a beautiful biting point and a very responsive clutch. From what I'm aware on the clutch, it's had a lightweight clutch and a flywheel, so the way it changes is so responsive and just perfect. It's just there at a snap of a finger. And then also having the short shifter. Initially I wasn't really sure of the short shifter, but boy oh boy, it makes a difference, because when you really want to get into driving this a bit spiritedly, it just wants to impress and wants to do the business. bhp wise, this produces 480 brake horsepower, a phenomenal 620 newton meters of torque, and the 0 to 62 miles per hour possible in 3.9 seconds. The top speed being 193 miles per hour. And these speeds of less than 30 miles an hour around the village is very satisfying to do, because it just proves the point that this is very much a usable Porsche 911. And that is a rare thing to say. Should I say a supercar? Perhaps a sports car? But how many sports cars do you know that produces 480 brake horsepower, 620 newton meters of torque, and the 0 to 62 miles per hour in less than 4 seconds, and a top speed of 193 miles per hour? So I would say supercar territory, and definitely for a car that is now coming up to being 20 years old, that's ultimately a classic, is in its heydays would definitely have been a supercar. This has had no expenses spared. As I said, the clutch has been done, shock shifter, the RSS engine mount. It's had a new diff because the previous one had a slight leak. Overall, it's had everything you could ever possibly imagine. The tires have got, they're the right tires, N-rated, with loads of tread in it, and it's the sort of car that you just want to get into and not have to faff around or fuss around or worry about or think about. And even on days like this, you just want to get into it and drive it. Yes, it's white, it's stamped. It's a 911 Turbo, 4-wheel drive. I'm really trying my best to be gentle on the accelerator. But I'll open it up now. Let me drop it to third. That's 5,000 RPM, 4.5 in fourth gear. Just such precise handling. And every time you take one of these bends, it is just so well planted. It just doesn't lose even an inch of grip, or it's not sliding about where you might feel like there's a lack of confidence that you might have in this car. Not at all. Not at all. What I wanted to say is that this speaks for itself. Having had it now in stock for about sort of a week or so, every time I've wanted to do a trip somewhere or drive a car somewhere, and just that's going to lift up my mood and just lighten me up, this is what I've chosen. And I've even been a passenger at the back in it.